Call to order the regular meeting of the school board for Monday, November 10th, 2025. The first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to stand as you're able. Before we move on to our norms, just a note that board member Flynn is joining us by phone this evening. Dr. Lund, our norms.
School board meeting norms. Number 1, be prepared. Number 2, be on time. Number 3, value and respect each other. Number 4, exercise thoughtful deliberation and conversation. Number 5, be professional at the board table and when visiting with the general public. Number 6, speak up when the norms are not being followed. And number 7, advocate on behalf of students and keep the community in mind.
Thank you. Item 2, the approval of our agenda for this evening. I would seek a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Clevin and a second by Mr. Larson. We'll take a roll call vote.
Palmasino.
Yes.
Lund.
Yes.
Larson.
Yes.
Flynn. Flint. Anderson.
Yes.
Hodak.
Yes.
Manley.
Yes.
Clevin.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. Item 3, celebrating success, Red River High School. We have Dr. Arison and a crew, so we'll turn it over to you to lead us through your presentation tonight. Thank you.
There it is. All right, we good? There we go. All right. Thank you, President Berger. It's an honor to be here tonight and share with you some of the happenings going on at Red River High School. As you said, I do have a team with me. I have Mr. Hepperly, our associate principal, Andrea Altapeter, instructional coach, Cassandra Pohl, our math department chair, Mr. Nelson, our athletic director, and unfortunately, Dr. Walters is a little under the weather, so he's not able to be here tonight, but my guess is he's watching. So, like I said, it's great to be here. I'm sorry I don't have a sequined suit on for you. I know Onsted's at the bar, you know, you look high school, the difference between high school and elementary right here, right? Everybody's got kind of blacks and grays on, right? So anyways, but it's great to be here. So just share some things with you. Just kind of our mission statement, empowering all learners. That's something that we're really focusing on at Red River right now. And you'll hear that tonight as we go through our RTI model and our rider time things that we talk about. But really empowering all learners to enrich the world through collaboration, innovation, and integrity. And then our belief statements that we have at Red River High School and things that we believe. Obviously, number 1, students are our top priority, and that's really why we do what we do and why we have implemented a lot of the things that we've implemented at Red River High School. And so I'll let you kind of take a look at those. But just kind of giving you a little overview of what's going on when we talk about Red River High School and our school-wide focus for 25-26, and we're happy to say this is the same school-wide focus as last year and something that we just want to continue to get better and better at. And really what drives us at Red River right now is our effective RTI process. You've heard us called rider time. RTI is what we use. And the 1.29 stands for effect size. When RTI is implemented at a high level with fidelity, you have a 1.29 effect size. So what that comes back to is when done really, really well, you can see around 2 to 3 years of growth in students when it's done really well. We are not quite there yet. We are still a work in progress. We're working to get better and better at it, but really RTI is what drives us at Red River. The PLC helps us with what we do with RTI when we look at what our students should know and be able to do, our high reliability schools, and then really our relationships that are formed through the RTI process with our SEL. We talk a lot about relationships, and you're starting to see that now with kids that have really found a teacher that can help them and connect with them through their RTI twice a week. And Mr. Heppley is going to share some of that information as well when we start looking at our panorama data. So that is really our school-wide focus and what we're trying to do and do very, very well. And we have some data that we'll share with you tonight. Just kind of an overview of what we're going to cover today. School overview, student highlights. Mr. Nelson's got a short little video. We're going to look at some assessment data, a lot of data, panorama data, choice ready data, rider time data, our literacy goal, our math goal, Native American graduation rates, attendance data, ACT data, just a lot of different data points for you guys to take a look at. So with that, a little bit about us here at Red River High School. Kind of our demographics, as you take a look at our breakdown of our student population, and you'll see the Native American, our Asian, our Black and African American, Hispanic, Native American, and just how Red River breaks down, 78%. White, that's our overall breakdown. Staff breakdown, or student breakdown, you'll see we're pretty even throughout our grade levels. Our largest class, of course, is our freshman at 309. That turned out really, really dark. I can't even see that number but in grade 10, but 25% sophomores, 25.1 juniors, and then seniors are at 23.2. So student breakdown, staff breakdown, when you look at our years of experience, this is a pretty balanced model when you look at the way our staff breaks down with years of experience, 27 teachers, 0 to 10. Same amount, 11 to 20. 19, 21 to 30, and then as we were talking today, getting ready for this presentation, we're like, wow, 11 teachers, 31 years and up. I think that says a lot about some of our veteran teachers and still doing what they love every day and still coming to Red River and making a difference in kids' lives. So that is a little bit about our staff breakdown. So with that, Mr. Nelson is up right away here to kind of give you a few student highlights.
All right, well, good evening. My name is Tyler Nelson. I'm the athletic director at Red River High School. I'm here to just talk about two different programs that we offer at Red River, or provide, I should say, at Red River to help ensure that our freshmen are feeling welcomed, feeling part of the Rough Rider family, and also gives our leaders and our upperclassmen an opportunity to help grow in their leadership and their mentorship. And again, I think when you talk about being a Rough Rider, it's one thing to teach someone to be a Rough Rider. I think you can also grow from that. So two programs. So the first one is our student leadership program. This is something that Dr. Harris and I, when I first started back in 2015, was lacking, a school-wide leadership program. Leadership Council is a council that consists of around 50 student leaders. They are selected by their advisors or clubs, directors, coaches. Essentially every program, co-curricular, extracurriculars that we offer at Red River High School, we like to have an advocate for that program as part of this council. This group of students help us tremendously in greeting our freshmen on that first day of school. They help guide that freshman orientation day where the students do a shortened version of their schedule, and then in the afternoon it's a lot of talking about Red River High School. We bring in alumni, they break down in small groups with our leaders. Again, just really trying to give them that positive first day experience, and also a leader to kind of say hi to in the hallway, someone that they know if they're coming in not knowing too many people. We do then meet monthly throughout the year. Just 2 weeks ago, we had Bubba Schweigert come in and talk about leadership and school culture. So we really try to utilize our RTI time is when we do meet, and we just talk about how to continue to build those student leaders as not only leaders, but growing in their character as well. So again, still sort of a work in progress, but a really cool group of kids at Red River High School. And then the next one is our freshman mentoring program. This was started by Terry Horpedahl. And the idea of the mentor program is to pair upperclassmen with our incoming freshmen to give them, again, just a resource, give them someone to talk to. And some of the things that we do in there is we just talk about adversity, we talk about getting involved, we talk about balancing high school life, because again, we all know that's a little bit different going from middle school to high school. We do have a short video that we have some of our teachers that are part of it and students, so they can tell you a little bit more.
Why the program is it helps our freshmen make the transition from the middle school experience to the high school experience. There's a lot of new moving parts, and there's a lot more freedom, and there's a lot more responsibility, and I think it's overwhelming for some of them. And so having these mentors that have been through the ropes kind of navigate for them is a really good experience for them.
I think the mentor program here at Red River really helps the new riders feel comfortable and bring us all together as one community.
When I was a freshman, it was such a great experience to have older people in the school that I could count on when I needed help with any questions or anything. It was nice to have someone to look at in the hallways and someone to say hi to at the football games, and it was just great overall.
Freshman mentoring has impacted me as becoming a greater leader. I've come out of my comfort zone to talk more, and I've honestly became kind of friends with the freshmen that I've mentored. I find them in the hallways, we talk a little bit, we talk about our days and what's been going on, and it just feels good to like help these freshmen come into the school and get to know everyone and have a person to always come talk to.
Yeah, so that's kind of our mentor program. I think the unique thing about it is this year we had over 100 upperclassmen apply to be a mentor. And we really try to provide that opportunity for all students. So it's not just your high-flying leaders that are signing up to do this. We definitely have some kids that maybe this is very much so out of their comfort zone, maybe not really seen as a leader within our school, and it's just a great opportunity for them to experience that leadership, grow in their character, and obviously helps our freshmen tremendously, just giving them a little bit of a resource coming into life at high school. So I was told not to be long-winded, and I did not have notes, but yeah. So I appreciate you guys hearing and listening to a couple of the programs that we do at Red River High School. So thank you.
All right, thanks. So that's been a great program that we have, and Tyler spends a lot of time getting ready, a lot of summertime getting ready for some of our leadership and with our freshman mentoring. So thank him for that. Now he has a booster club meeting to be at, so if you see him duck out, that's where he's headed next. So, all right, next up, we're just gonna hit you with some assessment data, and we have a lot of different screenshots in here, and they're just kind of some quick hits when it comes to summative data from last year, and then we have some quick formative data, I guess that you could say, interim data for the start of this year. So, last year's, that was supposed to come in twice. Okay, so that first one was supposed to be a separate slide, that fall ELA star one. So this was last year's summative data when it comes to reading. You can see our sophomores from last year. Definitely not the scores that we wanted. As you can see, Red River down there, we had 30% at level 3 and 3% at level 4 for 33% for our sophomores. And we really found this interesting because when you look back at our fall star data, we were at 55% proficient. So I bring that up to you because last year was the first year we did the NDA plus assessment in high school. And I think probably throughout the school district, to be honest with you. I think last year was the first year we went to NDA plus. So there's a lot of talk around the state, like these scores don't seem quite right. I mean, I think they're consistent across the state, but we're trying to figure out where they actually line up. So either way, it's a data point, and it's something we can look at, and it's something we can learn from, and it's something that we are currently working on. And Andrea is going to talk about our literacy goal and some of the work we've been doing on that. So that was last year's summative and reading. Here is math, and again, we're up at 26% proficient, or 20% proficient, 6% advanced. But if you look at the STAR test that we took in the fall of the year for progress monitoring, we were at 67.6% were proficient. So we're trying to figure out where the disconnect is between the NDA plus, and like I said, last year was the first year, and what we've been doing in other areas. So again, we'll continue to work on that. Here's our science as well. See Red River down there at 26% proficient, 8% advanced. And so, again, not obviously where we'd like to be, but something we'll continue to work on and continue to move forward with some of our science assessment. So with that, we have, these are just the interim tests that we took at the very beginning of the school year. So 3 weeks into the year, we took the NDA plus interim to give us some early year data. Now here you go levels 1, 2, and 3. So 3 is what they say is proficient. 2 is progressing towards proficient, and then obviously level 1 is in the beginning stages. So here's our 9th grade interim test, and we did find out that the standards that they're using for all these assessments are end of the year standards. So it's where they want students to be at the end of the year. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to math. Here's 10th grade reading. Again, 35% proficient, 50% of our students were approaching proficiency. So again, just kind of a quick check. Here's high school algebra. And so this is the one where you'll see 3% were proficient, 8 students at Red River High School. 14 students were reaching or moving towards proficiency. And that's really kind of what set off the bells. We're like, how is that really possible? So as we called the state, we found out it's end of the year, and one of our math teachers is here. She said as kids, as they were walking around monitoring the tests, they're looking at questions that they had never talked about with their students. Like they're like, that's stuff we do at the end of the year. So it'll be interesting to see how these scores continue to level up throughout the year. I think that'll be the big ticket for us, is how are we doing as the year progresses? So where are we at in January, and where will we be in May? I think those will be the big things that'll tell us kind of how we're doing. So these ones are all really at the beginning of the school year. So here's geometry for freshmen. And you'll see, so this would be our advanced track. You'll see 61% of our students in the advanced track were proficient in this class, in this content area. 12% were, or 36% were approaching. So that's high school geometry for freshmen. Here's 10th grade math. Again, 8% were level 3, 38 at level 2. So again, we'll check these numbers at the end of the year, and I think that'll really tell us how we're doing at the end of the year. Here's 10th grade reading. Same thing. And so that's a little bit of our state assessment data. Now we're going to do a little bit more of the kind of, I guess you could say, qualitative type stuff with kids and feelings and how they're doing and staff. So I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Hepperly.
Good evening. Thanks for your time. As Dr. Harrison said, I'm Mr. Hepperly, Associate Principal at Red River High School. We do the panorama survey for our students. One of the things that we've talked about is how data is kind of what we can do with it. We want to see what it is, we want to figure out what it means, and we want to decide what it is we can do about that data. When we look at our panorama data, so panorama is a survey that kids take in the fall and in the spring, and it's a year occurring thing, so we want to be able to track sort of how we are over time. I am happy to say when we look at, I'm happy and sad maybe at the same time to say it, when we look at our data from year to year, we consistently just get a little bit better, which we started good, but just a little bit better. We don't see any huge swings one way or the other way from year to year when it comes to some of our panorama data. But one of the things we obviously want to do is figure out what does that data mean. So when we look at our panorama data as a whole, one of the things we always do is the counselors and the administrators and so myself and the counselors get together and go through the results and actually go through the individual questions to figure out if there's any areas that we go, hey, this is a red flag. We need to stop and look at this more, figure out what this means and what we can do about it. So I just want to give you a quick overview when it comes to looking at these survey results. Sometimes the survey is better to understand. You're kind of looking at colors, and there's this, in high school we call it the sort of the fine answers that we get. If you have teenagers in your house and you ask them how their day was, it seems like 99.9% of the time it's always fine, and you don't know if fine is necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. And that's one of the things that we want to figure out when it comes to these survey results as well. Is as you look through that, you'll see the blue is what the survey considers a favorable score. The gray is what we would kind of consider the fine answer. Like, how are things going? Fine. Are they bad? Are they good? We don't really know if we can say one way or the other based on a kid's response. And the red would be sort of what we would say not favorable. So when you look at that, you're trying to ask the question, what did this data mean? You'll see when you get to things like engagement or sense of belonging, you start to see larger bookends of larger areas of the middle of kids. I don't really know, because on a Likert scale, you'll see some of the answers are sometimes is an answer that kids can have. All the time, sometimes, usually not. Like, it kind of bases on that Likert scale. But just want to give you sort of an example and go through some of the data quickly with you. We could answer any specific questions towards at the end if you have any specific questions, but just kind of wanted to give you a chance to see it. Each one of these categories has somewhere around 10 questions that are tied to it that kids answer. So it's about a 25 to 30 minute survey for a kid to go through. But it does give us some good data just to talk about what is it that our kids are experiencing, what is it that our staff is experiencing, and get some reflective data for us as administrators and sort of our tier 3 team to talk about when we talk about what to go through with our kids. So just to give you an example of one of the distributions, so broke down a response for a student. So this question is one that didn't have a lot of the gray, and you can maybe see when you look down that Likert scale, that middle area, how many of your teachers are respectful towards you. So it's a perceptive question. Obviously the answer is all, most, about half, a few, or none. And when we look at the data, we see that most of the kids, 88% of them, feel like all or most of my teachers feel that way. We have some that feel like half, that 10%, and then we have some that feel like a few or none. And really our job is to figure out who are those few and what can we do to have a more positive impact on those kids. That's really what the job of this, our group or the admin and counselors get together to figure out, is how do we impact those students' feelings. And that's for all of the questions in these surveys. You'll see as another one, this is one of the staff data points, and you go back to how respectful are your school leaders towards you. We don't have a 5-point scale in this one, there's only a 4, so there's that somewhat. And we look at that and say, we've got a couple people that don't feel very good about how we respond, which for us is something that we want to take care of. We want to make sure that we're being more respectful, even if there's a perception there. Perception is someone's reality, so we want to do something to try to have a positive impact on that. Just things to be aware of when you look at our data through this panorama survey. One of the things is also about our leadership team. There's some leadership specific questions in there. One of the questions that we pulled out was just, at your school, how motivating do you find working with the leadership team? I always want to say there's a caveat on that, because working with leadership teams usually means a little more staff work. So when you look at the middle one, somewhat motivating, we would expect that if there's a little bit of work and effort in tied to that. But really to give you the idea of this isn't just something that how does the kids feel, but it's how the staff feel, and more so, what are we doing as far as a trajectory in our building to have positive impacts on our school culture, staff and student belonging, and all those measures. So it's really how that data breaks down to give you an idea of exactly what we look at when it comes to Panorama. Again, lots of more questions, and I didn't want to spend all of our time going through that, but that is how we look at and how we view Panorama data at Red River High School.
All right, the next thing we'd like to kind of share with you is Choice Ready, another one of the metrics that we use, that state uses, that we use to see how our students are doing. So here's a Choice Ready chart. I'm sure some of you have come across this and looked at it and kind of are aware, maybe not quite the details, but at the top we have the essential skills, areas that students need to gain some of their skills before graduation. And you can see they expect everybody to be have the top ones, which would be a 9-week career education, personal literacy, civics tests, and computer science and cybersecurity requirement. Those are required of all students. And then underneath that, they want you to have 4 of the other indicators. All right, so that's the beginning piece. So this is data that we collect as a school, students report on as a school. They can go in and update some of their information. A lot of it's pulled from PowerSchool. So, and then the next one, you have post-secondary ready, right? So 4-year rolling career plan, 2.8 GPA, and then complete 1 academic indicator set below. So it can be done by the ACT, or it can be done with taking a variety of different types of classes, okay? So, and again, this is something, ACT is another thing that we haven't talked about, that's coming back here at the end, but so our students also, in order to be choice ready, somewhere need to take the ACT, or they can take some classes, right? So that's another metric that we look at. Then you have workforce ready, 4-year rolling plan with some of the things that are required within that area. And then we have the military ready. So if a student graduates from Grand Forks schools or any school in the state, they're supposed to meet the essential skills, and then in order to be choice ready, you have to be in 2 of those 3 categories. So post-secondary ready, workforce ready, or military, 2 of the 3, all right? So This is the Class A schools in the state, and you can see where we're at. 69% of our students being post-secondary ready, 84% have the workforce ready, and then 62% with the military ready. And you got to be in two of those three categories. So on the far right in the pink, you can see Red River High School had 69% of our graduating seniors that were choice ready. So a couple areas that we need to work on as well in that would be the military. We just started giving the ASVAB at Red River and Central, for that matter, 2 years ago, and making it a requirement for juniors. And so, because in order to get choice ready, you have to take the ASVAB. And it's a good test. It's a career interest inventory test. It gives some students an idea of what field they might pursue. And so we just started doing that 2 years ago. So obviously our numbers were pretty low before, but as we started giving that as part of the requirement, numbers came up by quite a bit. So 69% of our students choice ready. So if we break down the different categories, you can see 69% choice ready, and then how they did in those different areas. Community service, 95% attendance rate, career exploration, co-curricular activities, extracurricular activities, capstone course, online learning, 21st century skills, multicultural awareness, all those different things that go into that choice ready for the essential skills. Then we go into the post-secondary indicators, 69% students in that area. And you can see the top part and the bottom part with how they do. Obviously, we don't have International Baccalaureate. The CREAM is a class that is offered that we don't do. Neither Central or Red River does that class, but you'll see their GPAs. Algebra 2 is a requirement, an AP class. So that's kind of how it breaks down and what percentage of our students hit each one of those areas. Workforce ready, 84% of our students were workforce ready. You can see the career ready practices. I'll just kind of highlight that one. Career ready practices, the only students that get those are the ones that do work-based learning through Paul Zettler's program, through Eric Ripley. You can get career ready, but it's another grading item that all CTE teachers would have to grade students on separately. So I'm talking with Eric before that. They haven't gone through that. But it's something that they've talked about and whether or not they would do it. But it's a separate grade that each teacher would have to assess multiple areas. It's kind of the soft skills, if you will, about being ready for the career. So, and then work keys is an optional test that some students take. They don't have to take it. It's not a requirement. A lot of our students take the work keys that don't get the 24 on the ACT. If you take the work keys and pass the work keys, then you can get that state scholarship worth $6,000. So that's just another way around that 24 ACT score is the work keys. And then we have military ready. Again, the cut score for the military ready is 66%, or I'm sorry, 31 on the ASVAB, and 66% of our students hit that 31 number. That is really, you got to get that one, and then after that, you got to have one of the other two categories. Quality citizenship. That goes back to behavior in school. So if there's something on a student's record where they've been suspended or something like that, then they would not fit underneath the quality citizenship one. And then ROTC, and physically fit as PE if you've passed a PE class. All right, so that is our choice ready data. We should have planned this a little bit better, Mr. Happerly. Yes, Jay?
How active do your school counselors have to be with the students to track all that? Like, that's a lot of record keeping.
It's a lot. The counselors, and I didn't even get into, so there is Choice Ready, which a lot of that is pulled from Power School, right? And then there is the scholarship. There's a completely different set of criteria for the North Dakota scholarship. That's where the counselors get very, very active is in the North Dakota Scholarship to ensure that kids have a program of study in a certain CTE area, being sure they've hit the right ACT, being sure they have all the electives taken in order to get that scholarship and be to qualify for that. So that's the one that they get really, really busy. And we typically have, out of a graduating class, 275 kids, we'll typically have 75 to 80 kids receive the North Dakota Scholarship. So we feel pretty good about that. That's a pretty high number. That bar is a lot higher than what you just saw there. So we feel pretty good about that. So yeah, very busy with that. All right, next up is our rider time.
So I know you've heard some about rider time and our RTI process, but what I really wanted to kind of give is a quick overview. I don't want to get in necessarily the details of how we got here, because I know some of that stuff you guys have already heard. I kind of want to give you a snapshot of what we've already done or sort of accomplished. So one of the things that we do every 2 weeks, we have a guiding coalition meeting, and that's our group that really tries to make sure our RTI stuff is what I would just say solid. It's the engine that just needs maintained and maintained well. And this is something that we do every couple weeks. We go through our sessions for the year to make sure that our alignment and our goals are in line. So one of the things you can see just looking at this is the number of sessions. This is the breakdown of the rider time at Red River High School since we started that April 2nd back in 2024. So when you look at it, you realize there's 92 schedules. A schedule is like, I call it a house. You're building a house every time you do a rider time. And within that house, there's a lot of teachers that are building a lot of sessions, a lot of rooms in that house that are happening, but you need to build a house every time, and that's our schedule. So we've built that schedule 92 times. There's been 7,158 sessions created within those 92 houses, for lack of a better term. And really what those sessions are intended to do is make sure that kids are getting what they need when they need it, so that kids have access to teachers and teachers have access to kids. That's the sort of line that goes through everything for us, is how do we create within our processes opportunities for kids to get teachers and teachers to get kids when they know that they need them. One of the things we track, and we're pretty happy with how it looks right now. We'd always like to see our student self-enrollment numbers increase. We want the high school, we want self-regency to be a big deal. We want students advocating for themselves, knowing this is what I need to do to get help. We always want to see that number grow, but it is growing. It's not our 25% all the way across the board. It does sit a little higher, and we really track that to see, are our kids being responsible for their responsibility of getting help when they need it from the people that they need it with. The great thing about Rider Time for us is it kind of creates the opportunity for all kids to have access to any of the teachers they want, not necessarily just a teacher in their one content area. They could have another teacher in that content area help them based on how that session is set up. You'll see in our open and close sessions, we usually track the data that shows RTI that works well, typically floats around that 20%-ish, 20 to 25% of your kids are being intervened for, that tier 2 specific intervention, and we're close to that number. We always would like to see it be a little less, but we also know that kids need help, and that's what those interventions are there for. So that kind of gives you a quick overview, maybe a little more of the specifics of that, just so that you have a breakdown of what those numbers actually look like. We've got each session is 30 minutes long. So we've had the opportunity since we've started this to have 1,718 intervention sessions where teachers are selecting kids that they know need additional help or support on a standard or a skill to do well in school. Our intervention sessions are typically closed sessions, which means nobody can just enroll in them. Teachers have to place in there who they want in there. When we break that down, you'll see we have fewer intervention sessions, and then it grows as our student needs grow. Work sessions are something that a teacher creates that's open that other kids can enroll in. However, it's for a specific access to a teacher. So if I'm a math teacher that may be teaching a math course, but I have other kids that I know in math that need assistance, it doesn't have to be just my one specific class for that day. I could have other math needs coming into that room to provide support. Those are specific work sessions. And then we have enrichment sessions where teachers can choose to go above and beyond when needed for students that may need to go further, and that's That's a choice for a teacher to make if they want to offer an enrichment session for a student to ever a group of students. It also gives access to some of the groups, like whether it's DECA or some festival stuff for choir. It's an easy way to be able to figure out how I can get my arms around some kids and get them in here for some specific thing without it impacting more class time or lost class time in other areas. And then the study hall sessions are just, we know kids need a place to go. One of the big things for us in Rider Time is for everybody. It's not just for people that struggle. It's not just for people who don't. It's for everybody. And we know we have places kids need to be, and that's why we have sort of the breakdown of offerings that we have. Some departments do really, really great. I'll brag on math a little bit about being collaborative and figuring out who do we need, when do we need them, how can we get them. They do a really great job around that PLC of figuring out how do we deliver the tangibles that kids need within the process of a school day. That's the other thing we love about Rider Time is it's never going to depend on a kid's ability to get to school early or be able to stay at school late. You get an hour a week where you can be in the building during the school day. All you got to do is walk to the area of need that you have in order to get that kind of support. Just a kind of we do quick snapshots. I just call them quick temperature checks. We've done this at the end of our quarter. Our first time we've done that at Q4 in 2024, and then we did it at the end of the year last year. One of the things we just want to figure out is how is this being perceived by kids and by adults and by parents within our system. So we had a quick snapshot, 328 kids responded in that quick snapshot. We always say in schools, if you can get more than 70% of kids to like something, agree or strongly agree, we feel pretty good about it. And looking at our numbers, we really have good numbers of kids that feel like this has had a positive impact on my ability to be successful in class. We always want to compare that to sometimes student perspective and teacher perspective because teacher workload can increase, so we always want to balance that. So we obviously ask the same questions to our staff and ask our staff to respond to that same question. I feel that it has a positive impact on my students' ability to be successful in my class, and you can see the data there is really supportive of that too. So we're seeing it not only that perspective in our kids that this is really valuable for us and access to our teachers is valuable, but our teachers feel like this is also important for us to maintain with our students as well. I can come back and answer any questions on Rider Time. Did anybody have any questions about Rider Time? Yeah.
First of all, I congratulate you because I think Rider Time is very important. What time, how do the teachers, administrators, who's ever creating and prepping those sessions, when do they do that?
I think there's varying different answers to that maybe. I would say it's done either during prep times, it's done whenever they're ready for it. I would say the answer to that when teachers create the sessions is we always ask for them to try to be created before our student self-enrollment time happens. So like for instance, our enrollment for this week was last week Thursday. So last week Thursday it opened up for kids to sign up for whatever they felt like they needed. We just asked teachers to try to create those sessions before that time. It really is a support thing for students more than it is like a prep a lesson. And I could have teachers probably respond to that better than I could, but it really is, we've done something already and I got to get you back to do it again or do it differently is really what that becomes.
And how are the students identified or determined for what sessions that they're going to go into? Is that teacher, parent, administrators, and such?
So teachers and students. So a student selects what they want. That's students that are self-enrolled. Or a teacher place, teacher admin place students would be if there's a teacher that says, hey, the student just talked to me, said they really would like to get into your session. They need some additional help. Are you okay with me putting them in there? That is, so really in our system, any teacher can put a student anywhere. It's just the student is able to request or the student is able to sign themselves up for a session that the restrictions aren't set on. So within that big RTI scheduler that collects all that data for us, that really is the piece for us that RTI scheduler helps us sort of organize how those 1,200 kids get dispersed throughout the day. So if a teacher requests or a teacher selects a kid that they get placed in there, an administrator can go move a kid. One of the things we do is students that have above a 75% in any of their or all of their classes are eligible for what we just call common study hall, which is just a place to sit down and quietly work on work. They don't have to go to a room. They're in the commons, but they're working on work in the commons. There's some criteria around restrictions on that because if you don't have a 75%, we want you to have access to those teachers. So those students are either auto-enrolled or teachers are selecting them or students are finding their own ways by selecting those classes.
And my last question is, how do you inform parents about these basically intervention strategies that are for their students, so that either does a parent ever request, does a student tell the parent about them and what they're doing for them? Just kind of the involvement or the engagement of parents with this.
I wouldn't say we have a solid process. It is part of our daily conversations. I can say with all of our 504 meetings we have, all of the IEP meetings we have, we actually go into our rider time data and say, where has the student's time been spent? And if we don't see it's aligning very well to what the student's needs are, then we have more adult intervention on making sure it's the adults selecting where these kids need to be for the period of time to make sure they're getting the right kind of support and interventions. We have information that goes out to parents as far as when we started the process, but we don't have anything as far as specific push out data that happens.
Freshmen. That's something that our counselors go over with our incoming freshmen as well. So in their back to school meetings, they have before the school year starts, they talk a lot about rider time. Kids that are struggling, we usually work pretty closely with their parents, and so their parents are working with their counselors, associate principals. So that's how the information gets out as far as kids that really need that assistance, and so it's worked pretty well that way.
Anything else on rider time?
Other questions from board members? Ms. Flynn, on the telephone, do you have anything at this point?
No, great presentation. Thank you.
Thanks. So I'll get into maybe a little bit more of the attendance side of it. Now, we know rider time, our interventions, attendance, grades, all that stuff is combined. So we just wanted to report back a little bit, and you guys have heard some of this data already, so I just wanted to quickly maybe get in front of you one more time of how we're tracking this attendance data with the new attendance policy that we have in place. It is great to see a decrease. It's great to see kids in school more. You can see it's sort of a palpable difference for teachers to feel like I'm not constantly trying to track kids down, that kids are there more frequently, and you can see just in those numbers, and we go up by period. Each time a period is missed, it's kind of like a day in that class, the kid's not able to get that content. So you can see over the last couple of years just how that decrease has played out between the 23-24 and 24-25 semester 1 and semester 2, which is it's all positives. We also know too that when we look at those tiers, that's the tier 1 is students that miss 6 or under, tier 2 is 6 to 10, tier 3 is 12 to 17, and tier 4 is over 17. So that's just the number of students that have hit those attendance totals throughout the 24-25 year, and then what we're currently at with those numbers. We always try to, obviously attendance and achievement are together. So one of the things we tried to want to make sure we did with the implementation of an attendance policy, and when we're implementing rider time for the first full year, we wanted to see what kind of impact does this have on student achievement. And really at the high school level, it's are you passing classes or not? So it's really how we track those Fs. So looking at that decrease in number of Fs, looking at that semester 1, 23-24, that decrease is a pretty big decrease for us. That's a number that when we combined our rider time and our attendance together, that is where we really feel like that impact at that 43 and 31 really kind of stand out. It's a combination of kids being there more and teachers having more access to kids that really results in more student success at the grades. And then just wanted to talk a little bit through our MTS process as a whole. At our tier 3 level, especially when a student is brought to our attention of, hey, we've got some concerns, we staff it with our tier 3 team, which is called our CAPS team. And you can just kind of see on that right side, it's just the flow chart to kind of let you know that if something comes up, there's not really any place it goes and dies. It either goes someplace and gets reviewed consistently, or it goes someplace, and if it doesn't work in those reds, it goes to a blue, and then the blue goes until it gets red, and then if it's red, it's like, hey, it's not working yet, or it's not working now, and then you go back to that process. So it really is that cyclical process of MTSS of kids are struggling. What do you do when you notice they struggle? You adjust. After you adjust, you track. If it's not working, you adjust again, and just that process that we go through with the MTSS process at that tier 3 level. Just specifically about those IEPs and 504s, we really use that rider time data to figure out how it's driving those decisions around students that may need more support or may potentially be a 504 or a student that's in need of special ed evaluation or more support. We really look at how our rider time supports that, and if there's a disconnect in that. We want to fix that before we move on to the next step. That's one of the big processes for us. Our Tier 3 team, we go through an at-risk report every Friday as part of who is it that's struggling. If there's a name we haven't seen yet, we team around that name and figure out what is it, what can we do. If we feel like the group feels like it's an additional support thing, we assign a champion through our panorama process, and that individual's job is to touch base with some specific strategies and then track that success over a 4 to 6 week period of time and bring back information to the group. We also, some of our delivery, we use our RTI time to deliver some SEL for those specific Tier 3 kids. When we know that there's other things getting in the way of school success, so what do? Well, it's not just send them to math class more because it's already a struggle. There's other needs we may need to meet through a rider time or through RTI before we can get to that academic need. That's all I have for that. Yeah.
I know that generally the counselors go down into the middle schools to speak to the students that are coming up. Do they introduce the rider time and all of this to them at that time, or do they wait until they come in as freshmen?
I believe this year they did it because last year at middle school they did some of their own sort of intervention time, so they kind of piggybacked off of it. I do know it's a big part of our freshman orientation process.
And then we did receive an email from a couple of the middle school counselors asking about getting them some information. So they had the attendance plan, our RTI plan, so they're able to share with their 8th graders, like, hey, this is what's coming up in high school, whether it's Central, Red River with the attendance plan, and then for us, the rider time, so.
That's what I would think would be most important, is that connection with the middle school to that high school, that transitioning for what that student was receiving for support and intervention at that middle school, so that it just doesn't fall away, or that it takes you, as a high school, it takes you 2 to 3 months to identify those students that they should have been identified prior to. So I'm going to tell you, I really assume that you're doing this, but I just want to point this out because I would like our parents to know this out there as well.
That would be a correct assumption, specifically with our counselors, yes. I'm going to turn it over to Andrea.
I will adjust because I'm not that tall. Mr. President, members of the board, today I'm really excited to talk about all of the really cool building professional development that's happening at Red River. That's a big part of my job, is working with the staff. So we're going to just talk about some of the things that we're doing collectively as a staff. We talk about being a lifelong learner, and what better way to model that to our students to engage in a all-staff book study. So at the end of last year with the CLSD grant, our high school team agreed that this would be a great way to kick off the school year. So Central, Red River, and Community High School are all working on Powerful Teaching as an all-staff book study. So it really is connecting that HRS Level 2 work, high-yield instructional strategies that are based in research, and how the brain learns, how it retains information. So over the course of this first semester, we're breaking that book up. We've been reading it in chapters. We've been coming together within our PLCs, cross-curricular groups as well, just talking about best practices. What does retrieval look like? What are you trying? What are some easy strategies that don't take a lot of extra planning to do, but that can continue to engage students in learning, right? Not just regurgitating information, but locking it away so that we can continue to build on that as our courses progress. So that's been something that has been really fun, just to have those conversations with teachers. Easy things to try that don't take up a lot of time, but they also really connect well with our literacy and math goals as well. So the literacy goal is the same that has been kind of set out from the school board, that we want to increase our proficiency levels from 48 to 56%. So we have kind of devised a really unique way that kind of puts departments and in control of what that looks like through our approach with disciplinary literacy. So just a little shout out to staff members who are doing some really great things. But we had I think, a really staff-focused approach to how we approached our literacy goals last year. So after we had our fall STAR assessment, we took those results back to the staff, and we looked at what are those high-yield cross-curricular ELA standards that all content areas use. So we asked them to get back in their departments, talk about the strategies and the things that they already are doing in their content areas, and just kind of list them out. So just have some screenshots of, every department did that. And then after what we did, and then what can we enhance, right? Just tweak a little bit more, because we know that what reading and writing looks like in an English class is not the same as what it looks like in a CTE class or social studies. So we really wanted it to be meaningful to our content teachers. So they all kind of went through and highlighted some things that they already do or that they would like to enhance. And it was actually pretty cool to see 3 common themes emerge. So whether it was close reading and annotation, real world connection, right? What we read and how we see that connection into the real world, or how do we build vocabulary strategies and instructions so that our core content and our core words, right, are part of our everyday conversation, how we talk, how we read, how we discuss in classes. So we kind of grouped our departments together, and we last year started working on micro-studies. So really what a micro-study is just doing a hyper-focus in on some instructional strategies. What would we expect to see? What are some daily strategies, activities? What would that look like within a classroom? What would it sound like if students were interacting with each other? What would some student artifacts be? And then within PLC and departments, the groups really kind of created a list of strategies that they could deep dive into and do that collective learning around. And then we also had them kind of create their goals around that as well. So it's all part of everything that you would be doing within your department, and not being kind of a superficial blanket, everybody is going to be doing the same thing. So that's kind of what we've been doing this year. So it's kind of blending those two together to support our literacy goal. Are there any questions about that?
Questions from board members? Ms. Flynn?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I was curious about the transition from Wit and Wisdom to the high school literacy English curriculum. So Wit and Wisdom is K through 8, and part of what we heard from some of the other presenters were, really a lot of the curriculum is the same. So if you would go to one class, or from one class in the district to another in the same grade, they're pretty much at the same spot in the curriculum. So I'm curious about how that transition is from Wit and Wisdom to the high school English curriculum, and then how do you monitor for consistency since it was an in-house kind of written curriculum?
Yes, so I can attest to our 9th grade team. They are really intentional about the work that they do. They meet every Monday, first period. They work on their planning together, kind of divvy out their writer time sessions, how are students doing, who maybe needs some extra time and interventions. And then they share that same curriculum as well. So the English department has kind of their curriculum warehouse, where we have those standards in place of what standards will be covered per quarter, what those assessments look like as well. So I don't know if that fully answers your question. Dr. Arison and Mr. Hepperly are the ones who are kind of going into those classrooms and doing those checks as well, so.
I think Amber's question had to do with curriculum. Was that right? Was that the question that she asked? So these are really just kind of strategies that we're using to enhance literacy skills. The curriculum is still very solid. It's designed using state standards. Teachers, that was what Andrea was talking about. They meet in their PLCs, look at the priority standards. The instruction regarding the standards hasn't changed. These are strategies just that we want teachers to use to enhance their literacy, students' literacy and students' literacy achievement. So that's kind of separate from curriculum, if that helps.
Yeah.
Dr. Glatch? Yeah.
Amber, this is Catherine chiming in. So I think to further answer your question, there is a bridge between some of the strategies that are found in the Wit and Wisdom curriculum and what they are digging into at the high school level, as far as some of the close reading strategies, laying that foundational knowledge, the vocabulary, et cetera. I think you asked a little bit about or alluded to the skill component, perhaps. And so this year's freshman class is the first group that went through the first year piloting as sixth graders, and then the seventh grade teachers are piloting Wit and Wisdom, and then the eighth grade teachers are piloting Wit and Wisdom. So they've been exposed to all that curriculum. We're getting better with each repetition. I think what the teachers have broadly seen at the high school level is that our students' writing capabilities have really increased, but maybe their conventions are lacking a bit. If I remember that correctly, Andrea, that the grammatical part of it is something that we need to dig into and maybe devise a few more mini lessons around. But persons like Andrea are really tracking that data through the CIT department so that we can look and go back to plug gaps that may arise. But I think you're going to see a really unified K-12 approach in the general strategies and skill building.
Ms. Flynn, did you have any follow-up to that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm here to discuss what the math department is doing for the math goal. So our goal is to raise from 41% to 49% proficiency. We have kind of two parts to our action plan. Our first is we really focus in on our RTI process. We meet as a department to discuss RTI offerings. So because we're all teaching 3 classes and we might have different needs in all of those classes, but other people are teaching those classes too. So we can talk about, okay, I have 3 kids in my Algebra 1 class that need to be retaught solving one-step equations. But I also have 5 kids in my Algebra 2 class that need this, and then we can meet and discuss what's the best way to cover all of those needs. So we have our weekly meetings where we talk about what our class's needs are and kind of divvy it up, and we have a sheet where we keep track of that, a Google sheet for every RTI session. And you can see if it's an intervention, study hall, work session. We explain what we plan to do in that session and talk about if it needs to be an intervention, what kids, what shared kids can we put in that to make sure that we are reaching all the kids that we need effectively. Because I don't want to have a session for 2 kids and somebody have the same session for 3 kids if one of us can have that session for 5 kids. Any questions on the RTI aspect? All right. Then we also are seeing our focus on the literacy goal also increasing students' math skill. We chose to talk about annotation as our literacy goal. And one of the things that we have adopted is the bucked problem solving. You can see the little mascots go along with that, which we have posted in all of our math classrooms. And it talks kids through how to go through a word problem. Look for the question, box that, so that you know what your goal is. Underline facts, circle vocab, knock out information. Sometimes there's information that is not necessary and it's there to distract you. Get it out of your way, and then reminding them to define a variable. Sometimes if you put your goal, like this is what I'm looking for, it's easier to get to the end. So with that, I have a couple of examples of students' papers. The first one is a geometry exit ticket. You can see how the students went through all the parts of bucked and made notes on that. And they had the bucked on the top to try and work through that question. And then on the other side, we have an algebra test that had 2 word problems, and the student used the bucked strategy on both. What's very interesting is in the PLC that we talked about this test, that teacher says that they have had over 20 sections of Algebra 1. This is the first year nobody has skipped a word problem, and both were done correctly by all of the students. Any questions on that?
All right, we're getting there. Just a couple more data sets. One of our other goals that we have is our Native American graduation rate, which was part of our Be Legendary areas that we're working on and improving our graduation rate from 67% to 75% by 2023. And so you'll see, and then also monitoring our underclassmen as well. So last year's graduation rate was 85% for our Native American population, which we're very happy with. An increase. And then we are now monitoring our current students. As you can tell by the data sets there, we've kind of blocked some of that out. And so right now we're at 73% that are on path to graduate. 26% are not, but through our MTSS process, through our rider time, when you talk about our action plan and what we're going to do for that, Mr. Hepperly talked about our Tier 3, and that's where we catch up our students. That's where we monitor them. That's where they have a champion for them in order to move them through. And so we feel pretty good about that. And so we surround them with a team, with social workers, with counselors, with people to try to catch them up. We have a variety of different options for credit recovery if students haven't passed classes. So that's really our goal with our Native American students. So that's the Native American piece. And then one last data set I said I'd share with you is our ACT data. So this is the last 4 years. When I say state average isn't available yet, I think that just came out. I think we got that on Friday after I had already shared this with Cindy. So you can see when you look at Red River compared to state average, compared to national average, we feel like we're doing pretty well, and that's where it kind of throws us off when we look at the NDA plus and see where we were at on that assessment. So I think that will work itself out. I think that's something that definitely we'll see some changes on and figure out with our teachers and with our staff as far as that assessment goes. So that's ACT data, and one thing I want to point out with ACT data as well is those numbers that you're seeing, 21 through 25, that is all juniors. If you know, a lot of times around the state, they don't test everybody, and nationally definitely doesn't test an entire grade level like we do here in Grand Forks. So we feel pretty good about that. All of our students, that average compared to a lot of schools where it's just four-year college bound students that need that assessment. So with that, I think that is all of our data. So when you take a look at the data at the high school, we have the ACT, we have NDA plus, we have Choice Ready. There's a lot of different things that are kind of up in the air that we try to keep our hands around and be sure that our students are getting what they need. So with that, if there's any questions for any of us, we'd be happy to answer.
Questions from board members? Dr. Lund?
Dr. Harrison, just a quick question on the interim testing.
Yes.
When you talk to DPI, did you ask them why they do an end-of-the-year test at the beginning of the year?
So that was something that Amy Barch called and checked on. And again, this is one of those things, I don't think they're building the plane in the air with this state assessment, but it's fairly close. I was at the fall conference for principals and superintendents, and the DPI was giving the session, and they were receiving all kinds of questions. And the company that designed the test, Pearson, was in the back just kind of making notes and things like that, because it's really not super great feedback. When you look at it, it's like it's 1, 2, and 3, right? Whereas parents before were used to percentiles and things like that. Now we're just categories 1, 2, 3. I mean, I think it's a data set. I think it's something we can definitely use, but it is a change compared to what we were used to when we look at interim assessments.
Other questions from board members? Ms. Flynn, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
I've just one out of curiosity. It wasn't covered tonight. Any early takeaways from the first year Career Impact Academy, students leaving, coming back? What are you hearing? I don't necessarily want to get into the weeds, but what are you hearing from them? Student engagement, what's the, the first 10 weeks takeaway?
Sure. I can tell you as a principal, I miss seeing my seniors, right? Because that is one thing that we've noticed is that you just don't see your seniors in the building as much. They're taking a lot of their career classes, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but we definitely miss seeing. Those are the kids you've gotten to know really well over 3 years, and now we maybe see them for 2 hours in the morning, Career Impact Academy, and then they take an online class, right? So, but besides that, kids love it. The kids that I've talked to really enjoy the center. Love the classes that they have out there. The transition has been going really smooth. The transportation has been solid. We're still working through some unique things when it comes to PLC times. That's something that continues to work. Our rider time schedule works pretty well for them. The bad part about our rider time is the kids that go to the second block at the CIA don't get rider time. So there's like 54 kids that have to leave and go to the CIA and they don't get the rider time. The kids that are coming back to Red River from the CIA do get there right in time for a rider time. So overall, it's been good. I just, as a principal, you kind of miss seeing some of those kids around school. So, but yeah.
I appreciate the honesty and just interested to hear those updates as we move forward. Anything else from board members? Yes, Dr. Brenner.
I just want to thank our team here tonight for presenting. It was a proud moment here a few weeks ago in Bismarck at the ND Cell Conference when Dr. Arison and John Strandell were presenting on attendance. They had a full room, packed house, listening to how they actually pulled this off. And Mr. Hepperly was there in the audience. Dr. Dahl was in the audience along with Mike Wilbur and responding to questions and, the how-to and how did you get there. And then Mr. Hepperly and Tad Schei, principal at Valley Middle School, did a session on flex time at the middle school, and lots of questions, and I have a feeling there was a lot of outreach after that conference, so I want to congratulate them tonight and for their work as state leaders across North Dakota, so thank you, folks.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one. Okay. Thank you.
Move on to item 4 on our agenda, the public comment period. I don't have any public comment cards turned in. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during the public comment period tonight? Moving on then to 5. These items under number 5 are for discussion. 5A, a recap of our November 7th board retreat. Mr. Baumbach.
Thank you, President Berger, members of the board. I will provide a quick recap just to bring attention to the conversation that took place on Friday, but please chime in. You were all present, and it's appreciated that you were. Just that we had met as a board, which would have included obviously this body, and that established the committee as a public meeting. But in addition to that, we had administrators in the room from buildings. We had a lot of principals in the room. We had Brady was there as a GFPS rep, as well as, of course, the Herald was present and did some reporting on that. So we spent the morning together, and really this was the third of 5 board retreats, where the first we really introduced the conversation that has to take place around budget realignment. The second one was more about introducing a number of bucketed concepts, whereas this one really got into first efforts to sort of preliminarily measure impact of these concepts. And going forward, December 12th will be the next retreat, really drafting a scenario of what next year could look like, with a lot of the conversation around final determination taking place in that January timeframe. So those are the 5 retreats that are planned, and again, this was the third one that was preliminary impact, or kind of really getting into the impact of each of these concepts. So first and foremost, we kicked off the meeting. We clarified any kind of commentary that had come in between the meeting to say, did we really understand something correctly from one of the slides that was out that was around co-curricular and extracurricular activities? But then we jumped right into a forced choice exercise as board members, and we were able to put that against others who participated in separate forced choice exercises, namely being the directors and the principals. all of those were the same forced choice exercise, just exercised at different times kind of thing. So that way you can compare reflections from each of those three groups, board, directors, and principals, against the same questions being asked. That really gave way to a lot of good conversation around those concepts before getting into the measures of impacts. It was really looked at around student impact, organizational impact, budgetary impact, and then finally community impact. There, again, facilitated a lot of conversation around that, and that was the majority of the meeting, largely the second half of the meeting, hours of it. I would say that the concepts that are being discussed, the 12 of them, were meant to incite a forced choice. So there was lively conversation, good conversation on Friday, and I would think that even immediately in that meeting, there was reaction from board members to say, hey, would you rather this or not that? And even across all three of those groups or those forced choice results, principals, directors, and board members, you'd find that reducing employee compensation is at the bottom. And there was even further conversation just to articulate that that is not really a feasible response. It's not a legal response, something that you can do. You cannot just reduce the compensation. But the exercise, again, was meant to incite good conversation around a very difficult topic which took place. The fact is, and this had been repeated during the meeting, but I'll articulate it here for everyone to hear, is that 85% of the budget now is associated with people and their total compensation package, that's salary and benefits. So we know that there's a tough part of this entire conversation, and that's where the 5 retreats have been deliberately laid out to make sure that there's plenty of time spent on that. But that's 85% of the budget, and so there will be further conversation there. So I would say then going forward, again, December 12th will be getting further into those details. I mean, taking the feedback from the conversations on Friday and moving forward concepts of what all this could look like next year. We'll take the opportunity as I wrap up my comments just to underscore that we do have on the Grand Forks Public School website a landing page for a couple different things that is really meant for transparency. One, the slide deck that was worked through on Friday. In fact, notes were taken during the meeting. That's all published and available on the website. You'll find that right across the ribbon and the main page. Furthermore, on that same page, you can submit FAQs or questions you might have, whether you're a community member, a parent, a teacher, a student, a board member. Anybody can submit a question, and what we're doing is taking those in a thoughtful way of trying to produce a FAQ. There's some logistics to it with the number of them that are coming in now, and so we want to respond to those. So you can, once you've submitted the question, you can check back to the website to see that it was answered. If you don't feel that it has been answered, you can certainly submit another question as well. So that is my recap of Friday's conversation in context of the broader budget realignment conversation.
Thank you. Again, this is an opportunity for discussion among board members. So any board members, I know all 9 of us were present at Friday's retreat. So any comments, reflection, conversation, discussion from board members related to Friday? Mr. Clevin?
Once again, I find the forced choice exercise useful. I've actually incorporated it in a lot of conversation in a lot of different areas of life. But just factually, will the results that we saw are they on that website?
It's a good question. So to Mr. Baumbach's point, if anyone wishes to navigate to gfschools.org across the top ribbon, at present, at least on laptop, of course it might format differently for mobile. GFPS budget realignment process is one of the clickable links there. I can't answer your specific question because I'm just getting there myself, but perhaps Mr. Baumbach wants to respond directly.
I can, and so it is published, and those results are there, right, embedded in the slides that were discussed in the room. One thing that if you weren't in the room, you might not hear too is all of the healthy conversation that went with it, and even the point out, it's a bit of a process and a journey. These are concepts as sort of buckets, and we're going through an entire almost philosophical positioning of whether or not, would you rather this or that, to make sure we're focused on the student outcomes we really want. So they are posted, those results, but they could, they're incomplete without the full conversation at this point.
Other board members wish to weigh in? Dr. Lund?
I just want to reinforce something that Dr. Galatz said towards the end of the meeting about the decisions are going to be tough and they're going to get emotional. And I think those of us that have been on the board have gone through this before. This board hasn't done this, but I think past boards, and I'm not going to say it as eloquently as Dr. Galatz, I'm going to be more my typical. I think in the past, past boards have really undercut some good work by administration. I think of it as kind of a Tanya Harding type maneuver, and we can think of those episodes back in the past. One time it was because we got bad information, but other times I think we let our emotions get the best of us, and I think we have to be careful because these decisions are going to be tough and they're going to affect people, and they're going to affect people we know, but we have to stay above that and stay logical just so that we don't do that, because administrators, building administrators, people like that will still remind me of that, and we don't want to go through all this hard work and then have it go for naught in the end. So I just to reinforce what Dr. Galatz was saying, these are going to be tough decisions for all of us.
Other board members? I want to make sure we get a chance for Ms. Flynn to weigh in. Do you have anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Other board members? Dr. Hodak?
I want to say I really appreciated the cards, the laminated cards that you put out there, especially because they talked about the impact for the various groups and such. My only question to those numbers that were there, is that a range of, if we cut that, we could get, when it said decreased busing, 700 to 900,000. The low end and the high end, what creates the low end and the high end?
Mr. Baumbach?
Yeah, President Berger, Board Member Hodak, happy to answer the question. Each one of those cards specifically, when you're trying to put a value on it, because it is a numerical formula, or sorry, it's a problem set that we're trying to solve. So you want to establish this, you begin to grapple with an order of magnitude. So depending on each of those cards, they were valued differently based on a number of different assumptions. In that case of the busing, it was quite literally, there are some things you can and cannot do legally. You cannot, obviously, decrease special education busing. We will always provide busing for our special ed students, but a school district does have a choice of whether or not they provide general ed busing. Just like when they make decisions about how close to the building do you provide that busing versus how far should the student walk. That number was come up because we know how much busing for general ed routes in this district costs. So you can take that exact number, and the purpose of the range was to give a broader sense of order of magnitude rather than pick a specific number. But it was valued off the concept of if you didn't provide general ed busing. From the conversation I heard on Friday, that wasn't an option that was, anybody jumped up and said we have to do that. Again, this was meant to force a choice, to really compel us to think hard about would we rather this or that. There's nothing even yet in Friday's conversation that is articulating a picture of what next year could look like. This is meant to create a room full of good conversation about what is important to our school district.
Dr. Brenner, do you have something to add?
Yeah, just a couple of closing comments on this. Just because I think there's been a little bit of community buzz and maybe over some misinformation, and when people aren't in the room for the 3.5 to 4 hours that you've been in the room, over the first 3 retreats, when decreasing staff compensation was even one of the 12 concepts. Probably at the end of the day, it really isn't a concept. You could freeze salaries, but we're not even talking about that. So I just want to really underscore that there's a bit of a paradox here when this board has really committed 19% increases in salaries over the last 4 years, and then to start talking about a decrease in compensation, that would be a paradox and an oxymoron and whatever else you want to call it. So I would just I would caution all of us to just say that that's probably something that has fallen to the bottom, and it might even come off the list, when we get into our next retreat. So I just don't want staff or community to think we're devaluing the efforts that we've made to compensate people. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Other board members? Mr. Palmasino?
I guess my only question is when we get in looking at cuts and numbers, are we going to have a breakdown of elementary, middle school, high school, so we're not putting everything on one group's shoulders?
Mr. Baumbach?
Thank you, President Berger. I would say absolutely. I think anything that the board really needs to kind of wade through these difficult conversations, we as administrative team be making that available to you. I appreciate the thoughtfulness there.
Other thoughts, discussion from board members?
Yeah, I just want to add to that,
Yes,
Mark
Dr.
Sanford
Fletcher.
Center as well as part of that same process.
Thank you for that. Just want to make sure we don't miss anything in this discussion.
I have one more.
Yes, Ms. Flynn?
I was just curious about, to Dr. Brenner's point, it's certainly different when you're in the room, when you're having discussions, when you're talking about things. I think, the Herald writer and the Herald article was great to capture, really what was discussed. But I think in absence of people who weren't in the room, sometimes it's easy for people to just grab headlines without reading the entire article, or sometimes it's easy for people to, read a couple paragraphs and then not see, oh, there's a website included for you to learn more information. So I'm curious, one of the most recent articles that was written, certainly captures the most recent retreat, but have we put anything on our Facebook page? Has a notice been pushed out to parents? And certainly it could be within the building levels, but what is the district doing to push this out to the community and then the Herald article is a supplement. We should really be telling our story. I know this will be a piece at the State of the District breakfast, but, we're already on retreat 3 or 4. Has this been posted on our Facebook page, our social media?
Anyone wish to take that? Dr. Brenner?
I think our only place right now is on our webpage with the main ribbon on the top, but I can work with Melissa Bakke on our social media posts.
Mr. Baumbach, did you have anything to add to Board Member Flynn's point? Okay. Anything else for tonight's discussion? Mr. Manley?
In relation to employee compensation, I think on our first forced choice exercise, we had employee compensation on there, and it just said employee compensation. Then on this most recent one, it said decrease employee compensation. So I wonder if we take that decrease off of employee compensation and we still leave that on the forced choice exercise. And it's not that we're going to decrease it, but we can, on the next negotiation cycle, we can limit employee compensation. Just my suggestion. Thanks.
I'm sure Mr. Baumbach will take that under advisement as we work through those exercises. But to that specific point, as those of us in the room know, but we always know people are listening or catching this video later, we have ratified a 2-year compensation agreement with our bargaining units. And so none of that can and will or should, that's just not a possibility until what would be March or April of 2027. So I think that's really what you're speaking about, Mr. Manley. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Clevin?
There was discussion during the retreat about, obviously we talked about this topic quite a bit, but there were some questions about, yes, some to the effect of we can't change contracted employment rates and contracts, but that doesn't mean the quantity of people won't change. And again, because we ourselves talked about a paradox here earlier about 85% of our budget is labor and benefits, and even at the retreat meeting, we said to meet the budget requirement here, all those 12 components are gonna have to be reconfigured, right? And so you can't change contracts. Unfortunately, that means changing the quantity of people. And I just want to be the wet blanket to just acknowledge that's got to be on the table.
Yep, thank you for that clarification. Other thoughts, comments from board members? Ms. Flynn, one last time before we move on.
No, thank you.
Okay, a reminder, this was an item for discussion this evening. No board action is required. We'll move on to 6A. This is our consent agenda. I would seek a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda as outlined in your packet. It's been moved by Dr. Lund. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Manley. We'll take a roll call vote.
Anderson? Yes. Flynn?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Hodak? Yes. Palmasino? Larson?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Manley? And Berger?
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 6B, contracted staff resignation and release from contract, Kimberly Segrest. Dr. Brenner?
Thank you, President Berger. You have a memo from me. North Dakota Century Code 15.1-09-33 provides authority for the school board to act on employment contracts for school district personnel. You have a letter of resignation effective December 19th, 2025 from the following individual, Kimberly Segrest, who is a speech-language pathologist at Valley Middle School. The administrative recommendation is to grant Ms. Segrest release from her 25-26 contract effective December 19th, 2025 with the enforcement of liquidated damages under policy DKBB. You can see the accompanying documents, her letter of resignation, and also the DKBB-E form release from contract agreement that she did sign. Thank you.
Any questions from board members for Dr. Brenner? Dr. Lund?
Either Dr. Brenner or maybe Dr. Galach. I'm just wondering, how do we fill this? Do we try and hire a new, speech language pathologists, there's not a lot of them around, or will the rest of the group take up the slack?
Go ahead. Yeah, these are not easy positions to fill with people. We really, outside of people being present as an FTE on staff, we've had to rely on online services, and online services are much more expensive than having somebody providing face-to-face services for kids. So it'll likely be somebody online, and then we'll probably need to have a proctor in the room as well to work with a student or students.
Other questions for Dr. Brenner? Mr. Clevin?
These are the reasons just stated about all positions, all contracts, but maybe more so ones that are difficult to fill. It seems that's the reason we have contracts with liquidated damages, right? To make us force decisions, we sign a contract, we live up to it. And if we don't, there's a penalty. Like, is that a general reason we have liquidated damages?
Well, we were just seeing, after COVID, before you were on the board, Mr. Clevin, we were seeing a number of resignations come in during the year when we didn't have liquidated damages. And historically, the resignations we would have that would come in during the year might have been a spouse connected to the military or a spouse being transferred, and those we could, handle with professionally and humanitarianly. But the ones we were seeing, it was just like, I'm done. I don't want to work anymore. So that's why we moved to this level.
Other questions for Dr. Brenner? Otherwise, I would seek a motion to grant Ms. Segrest release from her 2025-2026 contract effective December 19th, 2025 with the enforcement of liquidated damages under policy DKBB. It's been moved by Dr. Lund. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Anderson. Any further discussion? Ms. Flynn, anything from you before we take a roll call vote?
No.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Clevin?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Palmasino?
Yes.
Lund?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Hodak?
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 6C, Superintendent Evaluation Committee Report. Mr. Anderson.
Yes, thank you. Superintendent Evaluation Committee met last Wednesday, November 5th. You'll see the members who were present. Followed a very similar format to how we have in the past, reviewing the superintendent evaluation, participation and data we received back. Overall, we reviewed the materials that you have in your packet in front of you, all the responses to the questions, and specifically focused on commentary that was provided within the evaluation itself from various board members. After following that, or as a part of that, we heard from Dr. Brenner on some themes that he took away from the evaluation himself and pieces he took away. And then, just further discussion around the overall tool itself. In the end, we did make the recommendation to submit this to the full board for approval based on board member input and overall weighted average ranging from 3.45 to 3.55 across all domains, finding the superintendent's performance satisfactory in all areas with unanimous recommendation for approval, and that motion carried upon voice vote. So I would leave it at that, but open it to other members of the Superintendent Evaluation Committee for any other input.
Mr. Manley?
Thank you. I think you covered that very well, covered all the topics, but just to note that the strategic plan questions weren't on this survey, but they will be added again to the next. Just an FYI there.
Great point.
I have just one thing to add to that. One thing we noticed, and I think it was just oversight, when this committee had brought a recommendation to the board to leave out the strategic plan from this round of evaluation because we'd seen, in a sense, the sunset of the previous strategic plan and we're just moving ahead with this current 5-year plan. The one piece that was omitted at the very end of the evaluation was an overall comment. There were plenty of opportunities for board members to speak to specific domains, specific questions, but there wasn't a summary box, let's say, comment box. And so whether any board members had a difficulty with that or went backwards to find other areas, in which to make comments, I'm not certain. So we wrestled with that a bit. It was not intentional, just something we noticed because it was on the last page after everything else. I just wanted to note that. If any other board members wish to comment or had noticed the same thing, that's the only thing that I would add to what committee members have said.
Yeah, and then I would ask that we could turn it over to Dr. Brenner for commentary from himself.
Well, first of all, thank you to all board members, all city board members completed the eval. Thank you very much. It's always gratifying to see your comments. I did a little bit of a look back just on the weighted averages from as long as we've been using this tool, and I didn't run a t-test or an f-stop. Dr. Hodak, I didn't do that statistically, but there's no statistical difference just based on an eyeballs per view with the 3.55 to 3.45 between that and a 3.6. So it seems to be relatively consistent. As always, I appreciate the comments, and I also appreciate that there's a recognition from this board that our executive team from Matt Bakke, Dr. Galach, Brandon, Jonathan Elwine, who has since departed, Amy Barch, their level of involvement in moving the district forward they're part of the executive team. So they tend to be part of my evaluation as well. And I appreciate that because there's an acknowledgement that it is a team approach. At the end of the day, it's my evaluation, but I certainly appreciate the acknowledgement given to the other executive members. Mr. Manley already brought it up that, you'll see a few more questions coming up before the March 15th deadline, and probably also have some commentary about my walkthroughs with Dr. Galach, Matt Bakke, Amy Barch relative to the guardrails. Are teachers doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are they using the curricular resources that they're supposed to be using? That'll be a little more qualitative in my narrative to provide to all of you. So just know that that'll be coming, and it'll probably take a little more time to complete in the spring than it did this fall. So I'd like to thank all of you for your efforts. It's an important piece of the work that you do as service and as a board member, so thank you.
Ms. Flynn, do you have anything before we move forward with this board action?
I do not.
So my assumption here, and Cindy, you can correct me, that we would be looking for board action to find in this as the same minute. There's not a cover memo, so I did not have this prepared. But the motion would be, oh, there we go. It's just at the very bottom. Here, I was looking for it at the top. Thank you very much. Now it's just a matter of if this will load in time.
I think it's right behind this one.
Ah, did not have it queued up. My apologies, everyone. I'll just read off the paper copy. So, I would seek a motion to find the superintendent's performance to be satisfactory in all areas. Do you need this first phrase?
No, you're fine.
Okay. It's been moved by Mr. Clevin. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Larson. Any further discussion? Ms. Flynn? Any discussion?
No.
Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Flynn,
Yes.
Hodak,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Manley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Clevin,
Yep.
Thomasino, Larson, Berger,
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 6D, Mr. Baumbach, looks like you're up twice in a row. 6D, consideration of pre-demolition abatement bids for Valley Middle School.
Thank you, President Berger, members of the board. Administration had sought proposals in accordance with Century Code for the pre-demolition abatement of hazardous materials within Valley Middle School, which means that our construction project is coming to an end. It's an exciting time as we look to move over from the current building to the new building, but then quickly behind it, the activity won't stop. You'll see the work of abatement coming and an eventual demolition. We did have a favorable bid. We had 6 different responses here. According to the matrix within the memo and the way that it was worked out, I worked closely with the B&G team, namely Daley Wilkinson, throughout this bid process. The weighting at the top of those columns was what was provided within this. Firm experience and qualifications was weighted at 25% of the decision, understanding and proposed methodology at 25%, regulatory compliance at 30%, and cost effectiveness at 20%. If you try to do the math against the numbers below it, it was pre this table when those weights were provided. We have the full bids, but this is just a summary. You can see how the totals come across. Really, when you take those categories, you put those, the totals come into that third from the right-hand side column. The costs are just there so you're aware of exactly the way those bids came in. And then one other important component that was a part of this too was the timeline for which the work would be done, which would be really important. So you'll see that Integrity Environmental really came out ahead as the administrator's recommendation for for the lowest responsible bidder. It wasn't quite the very lowest price tag, but the timeline component is what really adjusted for that one. So at $202,166, administrative recommendations to approve the Integrity Environmental as the contractor for the pre-demolition abatement and to use the building fund dollars for the source of those. I just want to clarify that. I apologize. I didn't write that into the administrative recommendation, but it was listed on the top half of the memo. It'd be important to note that the building fund be used I apologize. I've mixed my memos and I've misread something. Not the building fund. This is associated specifically with the public referendum. That's Fund 41. So please just read the administrative recommendation like I intended it. Administrative recommendations to approve Integrity Environmental as the contractor for pre-demolition abatement of the current Valley Middle School.
Questions from board members for Mr. Bombach? Ms. Flynn, do you have anything?
No.
Any others? I seek a motion to approve Integrity Environmental as the contractor for pre-demolition abatement of the current Valley Middle School. It's been moved by Mr. Palmasino. Is there a second? Mr. Manley. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Clevin.
Obviously, there were criteria here other than cost being considered. Were those considerations conveyed in the bidding documents? So bidders understood this wasn't a cost proposal, it was a cost and qualifications proposal.
Yes, Board President Berger, Board Member Clevin, absolutely. We even provided exactly this mechanism of how we'd be grading into the bid documentation ahead of time.
Other questions? There's a motion on the floor to approve Integrity Environmental as the contractor for pre-demolition abatement. We'll take a roll call vote.
Larson. Yes. Manley. Yes. Lund.
Yes.
Palmasino. Yes. Hodak.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Clevin.
Yes.
Flynn.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. 6E, consideration of commercial lease agreement with Waylands Incorporated and use of building fund. Mr. Bombach.
President Berger, that's exactly how I intended to start this out. This is where I mix myself up. It's this agenda item that pertains to the building fund, and it is for cold storage lease. One big thing about having the Valley Middle School building coming offline, as well as the Twining School building not that far down the future, and even inclusive of some furniture that had come out of the Carl Ben Eielson, which is currently under demolition, is there is at least a very short-term need for storage capacity so we can repurpose, reuse the furniture across our school districts. So you'll note here in conversation with Waylands Incorporated, there's a 5,000 square foot facility located just downtown, right around where you might know they're located at 945 First Avenue North. That is available, which is a unique thing to say sometimes in this town because there's not always that kind of square footage available for storage, period. So I would qualify that we're thrilled to have this opportunity to be able to use this. Furthermore, I would commend Waylands with their maintenance and upkeep of their facilities. So there are some advantages described here in the middle of the memo to this facility. It's clean and well maintained. I would articulate that better than what the memo does by noting they have a number of different tenants on site that even require and compel them to do a few things that are a little above and beyond. They have regular pest control that is greatly monitored, and then further they have, I think, greater than average fire inspections that take place on a quarterly basis more often. A part of this contract would be that it's all-inclusive of any common area maintenance or CAM charges, so any snow removal and such is taken care of by the landlord, as well as any utility costs and such are all included into the price tag that's listed here. So there's no additional tenant costs. It's unique in that it's a loading dock level facility, so our box trucks that our crew and B&G are used to can back right up, and then they can move product right into the truck, which is very convenient. Because they have a number of tenants down there, they have a warehouse staff member available all the time, and also a forklift that can be very useful as we're moving larger furniture. It is a insulated facility, but that is not the intent to be used as heated. It'll still be cold storage just for the primary purpose of furniture. You can see the lease costs are just over $6 a square foot. I did a little bit of research and talked to some other commercial real estate agents in town and have found that to be a fair price, especially for, again, there's the availability of the space, but then there's actually the fair price. When you get into heated spaces, they'll be quite a bit more than that, $10 a square foot, and then any kind of utility costs would be certainly on the tenant. So at $610, we're satisfied with that. The term of this lease is contemplated for starting immediately as the Valley Middle School changes are almost upon us. So it's a 7.5-month term to align with the end of our fiscal year, June 30, 2026. And if both parties agree The terms have been contemplated within this agreement to initiate another term for a year at the same rates with no escalation. It does consider any future terms to follow. There would be a 3.5% escalation, which worked with Wayland's and found that to be fair. Lastly, the North Dakota Century Code does allow leases to be paid for out of the building fund, and so that would keep it out of our general fund costs. And so the administrative recommendation is to approve the commercial lease agreement with Wayland's Incorporated for the term of 7.5 months. So we're just asking for the approval of the initial term from November 15, 2025 through June 30, 2026, and to expense the cost against the building fund.
Questions from board members for Mr. Baumbach? Dr. Lund?
Just a comment. Thank you for the thoroughness of your memo, because at the beginning of the memo, I was wondering, why are we refrigerating furniture? But then you explained it in the middle of it, so thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Clevin?
So 7.5 months, after which we'll have to renew or not renew, right? Where do we store stuff when we don't renew?
Yeah, President Berger, Board Member Clevin, currently, it's not uncommon to find furniture stowed away in corners and nooks and crannies and above gymnasiums at times. So I think that the initial need is, we absolutely need to find a place to manage this. It would be our goal and plan to have a yard sale, so to speak, across for all of our buildings and principals to come view prior to the next school year. Furniture needs always come up at the end of July and start of August. And it may well be a longer-term solution depending on just how well this goes. One thing you might recall is that when child nutrition came into place, we really were thoughtful about repurposing the entirety of the current footprint here at Mark Sanford Education Center. So a lot of the warehousing was used for the new child or centralized kitchen. And a part of that is just because when we're ordering new just-in-time shipping is a reality of today's world, we don't need to store quite as much. We just have this interesting thing of when we take buildings offline that we want to repurpose and not throw anything out. So we don't have the foresight to know exactly just what the storage needs will be, how much furniture will be needed there. But we've contemplated in this contract, so at least we know what the costs would be associated with that.
May I?
Yes, please.
But we don't foresee at this point a known storage rental in perpetuity. It's really my question, they're trying to avoid that.
Sure.
Some short-term makes sense, but long-term, are we avoiding that?
Yeah, Board Member, President Berger, Board Member Clevin, I think that is fair to say, but I would say that square footage within the district continues to be at a premium for a lot of reasons, but storage spaces that used to exist no longer exist. You might even have noticed a few Conex containers on the out back behind buildings just for additional storage. So I don't know for sure just what the future needs are for storage. I know the immediate one.
Yep. I just have one comment. As a self-professed mathlete, I struggled with one part of this memo at first until it occurred to me that the $6.10 per square foot, which you arrived at with Wayland's as a fair market value, that's the amount per year for that 5,000 square feet, and then divided by 12 months is how we get 2540. But the way it's written, at least to me at first blush, it seemed like we were missing one thing or another, that if it was $6.10 per square foot per month, it should be a whole lot more because it's 5,000 square feet. I got there. I don't know if anyone else struggled with that or glossed over it or used the bucked framework and maybe just like scribbled out that part, but I just wanted to name that I had to take the end around to get there. Any other comments? Otherwise, I would seek a motion to approve the commercial lease agreement with Wayland's Incorporated for the term of 7.5 months from November 15, 2025 through June 30, 2026, and to expense the cost against the building fund. It's been moved by Mr. Larson. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Lund. Any further discussion? Ms. Flynn?
No.
We'll take a roll call vote.
Hodak?
Yes.
Clevin?
Yes.
Manley?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Flynn?
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Palmesino.
Yes.
Berger.
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. Moving on to 7A, announcements. Announcements, Dr. Brenner.
Two quick ones. Just want to thank our veterans for tomorrow, giving some of us the day off. Not everybody, but some of us the day off. But those in particular who reside here and who have retired from the Grand Forks Air Force Base, we're certainly grateful for all that they provided for all of us. And secondly, just a reminder of the State of the District breakfast on Thursday morning. Doors open at 7:15. And for all of you who can make it, thank you, and it should be a fun morning.
Announcement, Mr. Clevin.
Today, Mr. Anderson and I attended a local government advisory committee meeting. Both Mr. Anderson and I will be at the Finance Committee meeting Monday to bring that information forward. And then at that time, we'll know, but we'll spill the beans tonight. November 24th board meeting is when that action will come before our group for ratification.
Thank you for that. Other announcements? 7B, board requests for future consideration. Mr. Palmesino?
Yeah, can we, maybe next meeting or so, get an update on when we're moving in the valley or what the projections look like?
Yes is the answer to that. Any other board requests for future consideration? Dr. Glatt?
Did you just volunteer to help?
Yes.
Just clarifying? Great. Thanks, Bill.
I just to your point, Dr. Glatch, I have asked on a number of occasions if board members could, again, according to their schedule and availability, but be a part of assisting and helping. So I'm hopeful that we can. Yes, but we'll find out more at the next meeting. Watch for more. Tune in. Any other board requests for future consideration? 7C, school board meeting norms. Dr. Lund, how did we do?
Well, in educational terms, and I'm a pushover, I give us an A+.
Thank you. We're adjourned.